You are not falling apart. You are finally becoming quiet enough to hear something real. And yet the moment that silence presses in, you panic. You grab your phone, you chase another distraction, you convince yourself you are just being lazy or depressed. But here is what Carl Jung understood that the modern world desperately wants you to forget. The cold, empty, directionless season inside you is not a malfunction. It is the very condition your soul requires to stop performing and start becoming whole. Right now, a version of you that is more rooted, more dangerous in its calm, and more radiant than anything you have ever built under the summer sun, is waiting in the dark. And if you do not understand the architecture of this inner winter, you will spend your entire life mistaking rebirth for breakdown. I am going to walk you through the 5 phases of this descent, not to save you from the darkness, but to show you why your deepest craving is for the darkness itself, and how that craving, once honored, rewrites everything. Phase 1, the exhaustion that precedes every true beginning. Think of the last time you felt utterly spent. Not the satisfying tiredness after a good day's work, but the hollow burnout, where even the thought of your own ambitions made your bones ache. You may have labeled it as failure. Jung would have recognized it as the ego's first honest surrender. The psyche is not a machine that requires constant output. It is an ecosystem with its own seasons. And the modern fixation on relentless daylight productivity is, from a depth psychology perspective, a form of collective inflation. We have been taught to fear the setting of our inner sun because we have mistaken our persona, the mask we wear for the social world, for our true identity. When that sun begins to dim, the persona panics. It screams that you are losing your edge, that you will be left behind, that the silence is dangerous. But that very panic is proof that you have been living in borrowed light. This is the first crucial reorientation. The psychic winter is not an enemy that invades a healthy life. It is a corrective that arrives when the life you have constructed has become too narrow to contain what you are actually meant to become. Jung wrote extensively about the midlife crisis, not as a joke about sports cars, but as a profound spiritual necessity, where the values of the first half of life, ambition, conquest, building, must die, so the second half can gestate. But this frost can descend at any age, whenever the soul grows claustrophobic inside its own ursum. The specific flavor of this phase is a strange emptiness inside achievement. You hit the goal, the promotion, the number, and instead of fulfillment, you feel a draft. That draft is the winter announcing itself. And here is the first mental switch you must flip. Your craving for withdrawal, for silence, for long hours with no agenda, is not a pathology. It is an instinct. Just as a deciduous tree does not apologize for dropping its leaves, you are not required to justify your need to rest in the dark soil. For decades, depth psychologists have observed that patients who come to therapy, describing a loss of energy and enthusiasm, are often standing at the exact threshold of a developmental leap. They are not sick. They are shedding a skin that no longer fits. The problem is that our entire social architecture pathologizes this necessary phase. We call it a slump, a funk, a depression, and we reach for the first stimulant we can find: a new goal, a new person, a new purchase. But the psyche is not asking for more stimulation. It is demanding a full stop, a comma, a breath, so that the unconscious can catch up with the conscious plan. Now, if you resist this initial freeze, you enter a far more painful territory. You mistake the winter for a disease and try to medicate it with more noise. You scroll harder, work longer, and you discover that overstimulation in a season of required stillness creates a unique kind of psychological hypothermia. The ego keeps shivering, searching for warmth in likes, in purchases, in new projects. But every external source of heat drains away faster than the last. This is why so many high-functioning people crash into bewildered despair. They are trying to burn summer fuel in a winter engine. So let me ask you directly, what if the heaviness you are carrying right now is not a weight you need to lift, but a weight you need to finally set down and listen to? In Jungian terms, the libido, the psychic energy, does not vanish in the winter. It reverses its flow. It stops projecting outward into the world and turns inward, down into the unconscious. This is not a death. It is an investment. The ancient alchemists, whose work Jung decoded as a map of psychological transformation, spoke of the nigredo, the blackening, the putrefaction that must happen before gold can appear. Your exhaustion is that nigredo. It is the rotting away of false motivations, of the persona's brittle scaffolding, so that something genuine can germinate beneath. And the specific emotion that marks the end of phase 1 is a kind of sad relief. You stop fighting. You look at your ambition and say, "Not today." And in that tiny surrender, the real work begins. But before you can settle into that surrender, you face the first true crisis of the inner winter, the terror that without your persona, you are nobody at all. This is the doorway to phase 2. The cold strips away everything you thought you were, and you are left standing naked in a howling psychic wind. Most people bolt at this exact moment. They slap the mask back on and plaster over the cracks with frantic activity, never realizing that the mask was what cracked in the first place. Phase 2, the unmasking in the cold. Once the external noise fades, you are left with something terrifying, your own face in the mirror, without the social lighting. Jung called the constructed self we wear in public the persona, named after the masks worn by actors in antiquity. The persona is not a lie. It is a necessary adaptation, a filter that allows you to function in a complex society. But the inner winter has zero regard for your adaptations. The cold does not care about your job title, your carefully curated image, or the way you want to be seen. It strips these away simply because it is too exhausting to hold the mask up when the inner fire is low. And this is the precise moment where the shadow begins to stir. The shadow is not your evil twin. It is the repository of everything you have disowned to become the acceptable person the world rewards. Your sharp, unexpressed anger, your wild, unsocialized creativity, the hunger for solitude that your cheerful persona has been smothering for years, the longing to stop being nice and start being honest. When the winter drives everyone else out of your internal house, these disowned parts begin to knock on the door. They do not knock politely. They pound. They rattle the windows. And you, conditioned to fear the parts of yourself that do not fit the approved image, interpret this as a breakdown. This can feel like a haunting. You might find yourself irritable in ways that don't match the situation. You might experience a sudden repulsion toward the social circle you have maintained for a decade, not because they are bad people, but because the relationship was built on who you were pretending to be, not who you actually are. You might feel a bizarre magnetic pull toward art, ideas, or even darkness itself that your old self would have judged as not you. You might startle at your own reflection, recognizing a stranger in your own eyes. But these intrusions are not a sign that you are becoming a worse person. They are evidence that you are finally becoming an honest one. I want you to visualize the psyche as an old grand estate. Your persona lives in the front rooms, the ones with the nice furniture and the good lighting. The winter comes and the heating fails in the front rooms. You are forced, shivering, to retreat deeper into the house, into the basement, into the attic, into the rooms you have kept locked. And in those rooms, you discover the art supplies you hid, the books you never read because they were too strange, the grief you never fully metabolized, and the power you outsourced to other people's opinions. You also find the anger you swallowed at 13 to keep the peace, the desire you buried because it made someone uncomfortable, the sharp, clarifying truth you held back because it would cost you belonging. Here, the commonplace advice to just think positive becomes not just useless but insulting. The shadow does not respond to forced cheerfulness. It responds to acknowledgement. Jung famously said that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That is not a poetic line. It is a precise instruction. The darkness you are sitting in must be looked at directly, without flinching, without moralizing, without immediately trying to fix it. You must observe your own envy, your own rage, your own secret relief at someone else's failure. And you must say, this too is mine. This too belongs to me. Not to act on it, not to let it drive the car, but to invite it to the table. Because every disowned piece of the shadow is a piece of your life force that you have locked in the basement, and the energy required to keep it locked there is immense. Winter releases that energy back to you. The friction in this phase is a kind of identity hypothermia. Your old sense of self is freezing, and the new self has not yet taken shape. The temptation is to run back to the front rooms and pretend the heating still works, to call up an ex, to restart a dead project, to post a smiling photo that denies the whole inner earthquake. But every time you run, you delay the discovery. And what exactly are you discovering? You are discovering that the energy you spent maintaining the performance can now be reclaimed. The charm you waste on people who do not actually see you. The ambition you burn on goals that belong to your parents' unlived lives. The careful politeness that suffocates your true voice, the winter, dismantles all of it, leaving you with the raw, unvarnished core. What would happen if you let the mask fall completely, not to shock others, but to finally stop exhausting yourself? The answer is what Phase 3 begins to teach. But before we go there, we must sit with the emptiness that remains after the mask is gone. This emptiness is not a vacuum. It is a clearing, and the question the psyche asks in this clearing is simple and devastating. Who are you when no one is looking, and no one is applauding, and no one is even noticing? That question, if you have the courage to not answer it immediately, will carry you into the most important part of the descent. Phase 3, the transmutation of isolation into sacred solitude. At the bottom of the unmasking, you hit a floor of loneliness that feels existential. You realize that no amount of social noise can cover the silence that now lives inside you. This is the threshold between isolation and solitude, and most people confuse the two so completely that they run back to toxic relationships just to escape the distinction. Isolation is the state of being cut off, a wound. Solitude is the state of being complete in one's own presence, a sanctuary. The winter's purpose is to teach you how to build that sanctuary from the inside out. Jung described the experience of the modern soul as being in the wilderness. This wilderness is not a punishment. It is the only place where you can hear your own voice clearly enough to edit the script of your life. In phase 3, the psychic frost deepens to the point where it becomes generative. You stop feeling sorry for yourself about the absence of others and start noticing a peculiar fullness in the emptiness. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that you have been living in a crowded room inside your own head, full of the opinions of your parents, your culture, your critics. And as those voices recede, a new voice emerges, one that is quieter, older, and vastly more intelligent than the noisy persona. Let me give you a practical, observable marker of this shift. In isolation, you consume, you binge content, you obsess over what others are doing, you scroll endlessly because your own company feels like a vacuum. Your thoughts echo with comparison and lack. You are externally focused even when you are alone. In solitude, you generate. You find yourself reaching for a journal, not out of discipline, but because you have something to say to yourself. You begin creating not for an audience, but because the act of shaping something out of your inner material feels necessary. You notice the tone of your inner monologue, and, crucially, you begin to edit it not with toxic positivity, but with the authority of someone who has stopped performing. The critical voice that used to berate you for resting now sounds faint and unconvincing. A new inner parent is being born. One that sees your exhaustion not as weakness, but as a signal worth honoring. The alchemy here is subtle and profound. The chill that once felt like a threat becomes a container, a protective boundary. The psyche, when not constantly bombarded by social heat, develops its own internal warmth. Jung called this the generation of the inner sun. The light that is not dependent on external validation, on achievement, on the reflection of yourself in another person's eyes. But this light is not born from denying the darkness. It is forged inside the darkness, like a diamond forming under unimaginable pressure. You do not become whole by escaping the cold. You become whole by learning that the cold itself can be a source of clarity, that it sharpens the mind, clarifies priorities, and burns away sentimental attachments that have kept you tethered to a life too small for your soul. There is a specific kind of fear that arises in solitude that is worth examining. It is the fear that if you stop performing, if you stop producing, if you stop being useful, you will simply cease to exist, that you will be forgotten, that your life will lack meaning. This fear is the final scream of the ego as it realizes it is not the whole castle, merely the gatekeeper. The ego has identified so thoroughly with its external roles that when those roles are suspended, it fears annihilation. But what actually happens, if you can sit through the terror, is that you discover a self beneath the roles, a self that is not defined by utility or public perception. This self is vast, quiet, and strangely humorous about the whole desperate performance. And from this self, a new set of values begins to emerge. Values that are organic rather than imposed. You cannot skip this incubation. Every attempt to shortcut solitude with another person, another project, another escape, simply resets the clock. The psyche will keep bringing you back to the empty room until you learn the lesson that the empty room has been waiting to teach you since the beginning. You are the warmth you have been chasing. And that realization, once it settles into your bones, leads directly into the most mysterious and potent phase of the journey. Phase 4, the fertile emptiness, the night sea journey. You have now been in the dark long enough that your eyes are adjusting, and what you see is not a void but a womb. Jung spoke frequently of the night sea journey, an archetypal motif found in mythology around the world. The hero is swallowed by a sea monster, imprisoned in a dark cave, or cast adrift on a black ocean. In every version, the same truth holds. The hero must be enclosed in absolute darkness, to be stripped of all that is inessential, and then reborn with new knowledge. This is not a metaphor for a bad week. This is the psychological equivalent of a seed lying under frozen soil for an entire winter, appearing dead to the outside world, while inside its husk a profound biological reorganization is taking place. Without this period of apparent death, there is no spring bloom, no flower, no fruit. The same law governs the human psyche. Your conscious mind, the ego, will resist this phase with every tool at its disposal because it feels like non-existence. You are not visibly progressing. There are no metrics of improvement. You may sleep more deeply than you have in years, pulled down into dream states that feel mythic and intense. Fragments of old memories surface unbidden, not the traumatic ones necessarily, but the forgotten ones. The small moments that somehow contain the key to who you were before the world shaped you into something else. Jung observed that during periods of deep inner work, the unconscious becomes extraordinarily active, communicating through symbols, coincidences, and vivid dream imagery. The conscious mind's job during the night sea journey is not to steer the ship. The ship is inside the whale. The job is simply to observe, to witness, to trust that the darkness knows what it is doing. This trust is profoundly countercultural. We live in a society that worships speed, visibility, and measurable outcomes. The night sea journey offers none of these. It offers instead a slow, subterranean gestation that cannot be rushed. In alchemical terms, this is the stage of the albedo, and the rubedo that follows the nigredo, the whitening and reddening, the emergence of soul and spirit from the blackened mass of the prima materia. The chaos of the unmasking begins to self-organize. You start to sense, in a way that is more felt than articulated, that a new center is forming inside you. Not a borrowed center, not a personality constructed to please others, but an authentic core that radiates its own coherence. How can you recognize that you are in the fertile void rather than simply stuck? There is a qualitative difference. Being stuck feels like paralysis with no direction, a flat, gray hopelessness. The fertile void, by contrast, has a charged quality. It feels heavy with potential, like the air before a thunderstorm. You may feel a strange sense of anticipation, as if you are waiting for something but do not know what. Ideas arrive not in full sentences but in fragments, in images, in sudden urges to write something down, to draw something, to walk in a particular direction. The unconscious is not mute. It is whispering instructions to the future you. Your only task is to listen without demanding immediate clarity. Jung's concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming the unique, undivided self you were always meant to be, accelerates dramatically in this womb phase. But it accelerates in silence. You will not wake up one morning and announce your rebirth to the world. The changes are occurring beneath the surface of your personality, like tectonic plates shifting. Weeks later, you will notice that a certain compulsive fear has vanished, and you will not remember exactly when you let it go. You will realize that an old trigger no longer fires, that a situation that once would have sent you into a spiral of anxiety now barely registers. You will discover that a creative impulse that seemed impossible a month ago now feels inevitable, as if it has been waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear it. The absolute dark of this phase is not an absence of light. It is the sanctuary where the future personality is nourished by the decay of everything you have shed. The old leaves, the dead branches, the masks, the borrowed ambitions, all of it composts into the soil, from which the next version of you will grow. So why do we culturally pathologize dormancy? Because a consumer economy requires you to be perpetually spring, perpetually blooming, perpetually dissatisfied enough to buy a solution. A person who is content to sit in the dark, patiently tending their own becoming, is a person who is immune to the manufactured urgencies that drive commerce. The wisdom of the inner winter is therefore an act of quiet rebellion. By refusing to rush your own gestation, you are withdrawing your life force from the machinery that profits from your anxiety. In the fertile void, you are not lazy. You are not broken. You are pregnant with your own becoming. And the final phase is the proof that the journey through the dark was not an escape from life, but the most profound form of preparation. Phase 5. The integration carrying the cold flame. The descent was never meant to be permanent. The whole architecture of the inner winter points toward a return, but not a return to who you were before. The individuated person emerges from the frost carrying a new kind of light, one that the darkness itself taught them to generate. Jung might call this the cold flame of the integrated self, a warmth that is steady, quiet, and sovereign. Not the frantic, flickering flame of social approval that gutters in the first wind. In this final phase, you stop being a victim of the seasons and become the container of all seasons within yourself. When you emerge from this process, the first thing you notice is a changed relationship to silence. You no longer fear it, you consult it. You carry a kind of internal winter chamber that you can retreat into even in the middle of a crowded room, a place of deep stillness that is always available. From that chamber you draw a calm that borders on unshakable, not because you have insulated yourself from pain, but because you have learned that you can survive any temperature the world throws at you. This is the ultimate integration of the shadow, not becoming dark, but becoming whole. The parts of you that were once exiled, the anger, the strangeness, the ambition for a completely different kind of life, the honest no you were too afraid to speak, are now seated at the table of your personality. They are not running the show, but they are honored guests whose perspectives you value. Your decisions become cleaner. You say yes from a full cup, and your no carries the weight of a sovereign who has surveyed their entire kingdom and knows exactly where the boundaries lie. The integration produces a radical consolidation of energy. You stop leaking vitality into the wrong projects, the wrong relationships, the wrong self-concepts, the people-pleasing, the over-explaining, the exhausting performance of likability. All of it falls away. Not because you have become cold or cruel, but because you have become deeply, magnetically authentic. There is a specific kind of power in a person who has walked through their own psychic frost and returned with a map of their depths. They do not need to dominate conversations or prove their worth. They simply occupy their own presence so fully that others instinctively recognize them as a grounded force. Jung described this state as a personality that has achieved a relatively firm center, a center that is not dependent on external circumstances. The inner sun you built in the dark continues to burn, providing direction and warmth regardless of whether the outer world is basking in summer or locked in winter. The most radiant lives, the ones that inspire genuine reverence rather than envy, are not the lives that have never suffered. They are the lives that have consciously accepted the invitation into the frost and emerged not hardened but deepened, not naive but still capable of wonder. They have learned that the craving for darkness was never a death wish. It was the soul's wisdom signal, calling them down into the fertile soil so that they could finally grow roots deep enough to support a tall, flowering tree. The outer world will continue to offer its cycles of gain and loss, praise and criticism, light and dark. But once you have reclaimed your inner winter, you are no longer a weather vane spun by every passing breeze. You contain the winter. You contain the summer. You have become the landscape, not the leaf. So if you are in the freeze right now, stop asking what is wrong with you. Stop trying to fix yourself back into the shallow brightness that made you sick. The darkness you crave is not an enemy. It is the laboratory of your future, the architect of your depth. The silence is not empty. It is crowded with the unwritten chapters of your most authentic life. The only thing required of you is to stay, to breathe into the chill, and to let the profound intelligence of your own soul finish its masterpiece in the dark. The sun that rises in you after this night will never be dependent on the sky again. Final whisper: winter is not a season of punishment. It is the season where depth is forged. Go inward. The sun you find there will never burn out.